This is Join Us in France, episode 273. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and on a typical episode of Join Us in France, I talk with someone who's visited cool places in France and tells us about it. About once a month, I chat with my friend Elise, who is a licensed tour guide and loves to talk about history and art. And other episodes are just me demystifying France for you, because as a French person, I want to give you the tools you need to have a great time in France. On today's episode, I talked to Lauren Gibson about her solo trip to Paris. I think Paris is the perfect city for solo travelers. There is so much to see and do. My guest worked out a nice itinerary that she'll tell us all about. She went around several Paris neighborhoods, recommends some great food places. Listen, if you're going to Paris solo, don't miss this episode. But even if you're going with family or friends, there's a lot of inspiration here. Show notes for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/273, the number 273. And if you're planning a trip to France, the site is chock full of great resources. You should check it out. I have a question for you. Are you willing to try something new? Then try one of my Paris audio tours. The newest one is a great walk around Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and no, you don't need data for it to work. Download it from somewhere you have Wi-Fi. You could download it from home if you'd like, and it'll run on GPS only. And this is not something I expect everybody to know, but GPS does not need data to work anywhere in the world. Yvonne, who is a favorite on the Join Us in France closed group on Facebook these days, wrote a short and sweet review of my Montmartre tour. I went to Montmartre last week and missed most of it after taking a wrong turn. Today I went back with Annie, who told me where to go in the nicest possible way. Informative, fun, and a really great way to explore a vibrant area of Paris. Do it! So how about that for a test? Go to a famous neighborhood by yourself with the information you've been able to piece together here and there by listening to this podcast perhaps, and then do it again by following my audio tour. It'll be night and day. You'll see all that you missed the first time. You'll understand bits of French history you didn't know were right there, and you can buy these tours from joinusinfrance.com/audio tours. They're not expensive. As a matter of fact, I just got an email from somebody who said, that's too cheap. It won't break the bank, around $6 if you buy it through joinusinfrance.com/audio tours, and it'll really enhance your visit. Bonjour, Lauren, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's lovely to talk to you. So tell us, we're going to talk today about your solo trip to Paris, and we want to hear about what makes it different when you go to Paris by yourself, because you've been there with your husband and also by yourself. And so, that's what I want to hear about, the differences.
Absolutely. Well, I traveled to Paris from mid to late June in 2019. And as you mentioned, I visited Paris for 1 week solo. And then my husband joined me for a second week in France. But as you said, we'll focus on the solo week in Paris. It was my first time there alone. Mm-hmm. And I stayed for 4 nights on the right bank and 3 nights on the left bank.
Oh, why did you switch?
I had so many ideas of what I wanted to do. I love the left bank. I've stayed there before. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to go back to a similar neighborhood, but I knew that I wanted to explore more about what the right bank had to offer. So I decided to switch it up halfway, which was nice because I got 2 different hotel experiences, 2 different parts of the city. And since I was by myself, it didn't bother me that I packed up my suitcase after 4 days and took a quick little Uber ride. It was not a problem.
Yeah.
So
you did pack a lot in those few days.
I did. And so I had a lot of ideas. However, I let the weather partially dictate what I did. So this is another benefit of traveling by yourself, really anywhere, right? But in Paris, I think it was exactly 30 minutes of a light rain the entire week I was there.
Right.
The weather was perfect. I don't know Celsius very well, but in Fahrenheit, it was high 70s, low 80s,
right.
Sunshine. So I had so many ideas, but I ended up walking around a lot, stopping in a lot of parks and restaurants, cafes, kind of popping into shops because the weather was so nice. So I didn't get to any of the museums that I had not seen before that I was interested in seeing this time. So because the weather was great. So that's I guess, go ahead, Annie.
Sorry. How many visits had you had to Paris before?
So this is only my second visit. I've done 2 weeks prior with my husband, and then this was a week solo by myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think traveling by yourself, it also allowed me to be totally flexible with the weather and kind of go with what I was enjoying. And I walked a lot, which I think would drive people a little bit crazy. But I truly enjoyed it. And I also discovered I expected to kind of take a book and sit in a cafe for hours or sit in a garden for hours and read. And I realized when I kind of got going that I like to stop by places, enjoy them, and then keep moving. And I was surprised by that because it was not my plan, quote unquote. It did allow me to, of course, see more, but I learned a lot about myself and that I like to just experience something, kind of take it in, and then keep going. You can always come back.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a conundrum for me because a lot of people say that they love to plan nothing when they're in Paris. And I don't understand that. Because Paris is a beautiful city. There's plenty of wonderful stuff to do. But not all of it is equally wonderful or equally interesting. You know what I mean? If you don't have any plans, you're just... I don't know. Where are you from, Lauren? Are you from...
I'm from North Carolina on the east coast of the U.S.
Okay. So if I went to Charlotte and I just told you, I got nothing planned, I'll just walk around.
Exactly.
What would you say?
What are you going to do with yourself?
Right.
Well, you know what to do. Yeah.
And the reason why Paris has this reputation is because of all the movies that have really romanticized it to a great degree. Not that it's not wonderful, like I said, but there's places where really it's not worth your time. Like, it's just a regular old neighborhood. And maybe it's because I live in France full time. You know, I see French neighborhoods all the time. To me, it's like, okay, so what?
So that may be a tiny part of it, but I think on the whole, I completely agree with you. And it's interesting you say that because the impetus for this trip, I had visited a lot of museums the first time, kind of those big bucket list, quote unquote, places.
Sure.
And I'd been waiting half my life to see them, to be honest. So I loved doing that. When I got home, I thought, I saw a lot of great museums, a lot of great monuments, but I didn't really get a feel for what was around that area. And so this trip, I focused on, it was mostly the areas that I had kind of breezed through last time to rush to Musée d'Orsay or go to the Louvre, but I didn't really understand what was around it. So in my researching for this trip, I did, since it was just me, I just focused on, well, what are some gardens that are in the Marais, or what are some areas near all of the great museums on the left bank that maybe I just kind of breezed by and didn't notice last time. Yeah. So I certainly had a laundry list of things I wanted to do, but I also didn't lock myself in to anything, right? So I wasn't wandering.
Right.
But
so you did have a purposeful visit.
For sure. I am a project manager by day, so I enjoy planning, and some may say I overplanned and had too long of a list, but I saw what I wanted to see, and I knew what I wanted to explore when I got there. I agree with you. The idea of going to Paris with no plan is, I wonder what you would do. I mean, there's some obvious things, right? But,
right.
But yeah, I don't.
Well, you get on the tourist bus, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not like, yeah, it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay if you're for half a day, maybe.
And that's what you can think about when you're going solo, is what do I want to do?
Yeah.
I did not want to go on a tourist bus. Some people do. One of my good friends does that when she goes to new places and loves it. So think about, especially if you're going solo, what do you want to do? Now, like, it might change when you get there. For example, I thought I would just relax in a park for half a day. But you know yourself, of course, when you're planning, and you can think about, what are the things that would bring me joy or make me feel like I really got to know the museums or the restaurants or certain parts of the city, whatever makes you kind of tick.
Yeah.
And when you're solo, you don't have to take anybody else into consideration, which is nice.
So I'll post your outline of all the things you did on what day and all of that.
Okay.
And that'll be the guest notes for this episode. But I wonder what places really stick out in your mind that people should consider visiting.
Sure. I think something that I breezed by too quickly on my first trip is the Marais. I walked through it in the middle of the day. It was so crowded.
Yeah.
I was a bit turned off by how crowded it was, and I hadn't really done any research about what area I was in, the history of it. So to me, it was not a great first impression.
Yeah,
however,
Marais is the streets. It's the last. Well, there are still a lot of medieval streets in the Marais, and so they are narrow, and they feel crowded, and there's still cars too.
Yes.
So it is crowded. It feels crowded,
and the scooters as well. So I stayed in the Marais for the first 4 days, and I'd like to recommend the place I stayed, if that's okay with you, because I loved it. It's Hôtel Caron de Beaumarchais.
Okay.
And it's on Rue Vieille du Temple, so it's pretty close to the islands, Île Saint Louis, Île de la Cité, but you're in the Marais. So I loved staying there. Reason being, I would get up pretty early. That's my nature as well, and explore some of the gardens, some of the streets, because that area, you can wander a bit in the Marais because it is quite beautiful. And I would do it early in the day before it got really crowded. And since I was staying there, I didn't have to figure out how to navigate myself there or get there. Mm-hmm. So I have a few gardens that I really enjoyed, if you'd like for me to point some out.
Sure.
So Place des Vosges, I know, is quite popular and perhaps a bit well known, but it is so beautiful. So if you are exploring that area, it's a large square with a lot of brickwork around it and a garden in the middle, and there are these passages that you can walk around. I just window shopped. But I really enjoyed walking around that area and just kind of people watching. Yep. I also enjoyed the Jardin des Rosiers off of Rue de Rosiers. It's a little bit of a hidden garden, but it has a piece of this Philippe Auguste wall, the old city wall that used to I guess, encircle Paris. Yep. So that was really cool to see. There are beautiful fruit trees, and it was just a nice place to relax. It's also near all of those really nice falafel shops in that area. I know you've mentioned one on your podcast before, but I went to Miznon, Miznon, and it is loud. It's hectic. The food is divine. Uh-huh. There are cauliflower, pita. I had a falafel. I went a couple times. It's amazing. It's the same kind of deal. There's a line out the door. There is some seating inside, but I took it to eat at Jardin des Rosiers. And so, if you're in the area and exploring the Marais, I would completely recommend that as a little meal.
Yeah.
I also really enjoyed, there was a chocolate shop that particularly stuck out to me. I did mostly window shopping, to be completely honest, but Edouard Chocolatier is on Rue Vieille du Temple. It's very small. And the salesperson was so kind. I started off in French, but I could tell she certainly, I heard her speaking to other people. And so I knew that she spoke English. So I got to ask her some kind of more detailed questions in English. And she was so generous with the samples. We got a couple of really nice boxes of chocolates as gifts to give back. So I really liked going in there and talking with her. And I just felt like it was a nice local experience that was also very friendly and approachable as a visitor.
That's great.
Yep.
That's a great recommendation.
Thank you. My last recommendation in the area in terms of shopping, this was just a window shopping stop for me, is Marais. It is it's quite a large store. I think they call it a concept store. The inventory changes quite regularly, and it's sort of based on a theme. But they have clothes, but they have a lot of housewares. I particularly liked that. And it's beautiful. The inside of the store is gorgeous, multi-level. They have a coffee shop, a bookstore, an adorable little courtyard. So you could definitely do some good shopping there. I just window shopped, but I enjoyed my time in that store as well. And if you go to Marais, there's a lot of stores right around there if shopping is kind of up your alley.
Yeah, the Marais is a great place for shopping. You have so many streets that are nothing but little shops of all sorts. Some of them pretty expensive. Quite a few pretty expensive, but many are approachable. You know, it just depends on what you like.
Yep. Yes, exactly. So kind of shifting gears from the Marais, I'd like to suggest something else on the other side of the city. I got up early one morning. I guess you're seeing a theme here.
Yeah.
And I went to the Trocadero, which I know can get quite jam-packed. Just for any listeners who aren't aware, there's a beautiful view of the Eiffel Tower from the Trocadero. So I got there about 7 or 7:30. It was the morning that I actually kind of got myself out of bed and going the earliest. There were people there. There's wedding photographers and all of that, family photographers. Yes. But it was not crowded yet. Right. And so I would say if you're going to do the Trocadero, if you can get yourself up in the morning, the view is stunning. And the way the sun is rising and hitting that almost like marble type flooring, you know, that's outside. Yeah. And it's beautiful. So I would recommend that as an early in the day activity. If you go later in the day, I'm sure it's great, but I've heard it is jam-packed.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. And that's why all the photographers go there first thing in the morning, because the light is beautiful. You have the Eiffel Tower behind you. It's gorgeous.
Oh, it is. I totally recommend it, but pick your time of day carefully.
Yeah.
And when you kind of descend from the Trocadero, there are some gardens and that you can kind of wander down. And again, if you're there early, I just thought the views were lovely. It was kind of a park feel as I walked toward the Eiffel Tower, and I really enjoyed that more than I thought I would. I kind of just wanted to see what it was like, but it was beautiful. Yeah. So highly recommend that area early in the morning.
Yes, it's a beautiful place.
And later that day, I went along Pont Alexandre Tois, which is that gorgeous bridge, of course, with the gold and the stunning architecture and the lights. But I would say, you know, if you're in that area, it's a few minutes it's right across from Les Invalides, and it's a few minutes from Musée d'Orsay. And if you're looking for a bridge in Paris with truly picturesque views, that's probably the one I would recommend because, of course, the bridge itself is gorgeous.
Right.
You can see the Eiffel Tower, the Grand Palais, the Petit Palais, the Musée d'Orsay. You can almost kind of see the Louvre if my memory serves me correctly. So it's just a really nice place for, frankly, a little photo op if you'd like.
Yeah, the pictures are beautiful. Again, this is another great photo spot. Pont Alexandre is very famous for that.
Mm-hmm. And then I went back into the 7th arrondissement a little bit toward Le Bon Marché. Again, a window shopping destination for me.
Yeah, that's pretty expensive.
It is quite expensive. So it's a large department store, and it is beautiful. There are those gorgeous elevators in the middle. I don't know why I said the elevators do not sound interesting, but if you see a photo
No, they are beautiful because they're Art Deco.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they're just gorgeous. Everything around there, the Grand Palais, Petit Palais, all of this Art Deco area, all the lampposts on the bridge are also Art Deco. Anyway, they're just gorgeous. The whole thing is.
And I think there's so much around there that one may already be doing, right? Musée d'Orsay, Les Invalides, Musée Rodin. So if you're in the area,
right,
going to that bridge or going to Le Bon Marché, I think the Le Bon Marché really surprised me just in how beautiful it was as a place to walk around.
Yes. Yeah, highly recommended. It's very nice. And yeah, again, it's really important. I mean, I know you said you walked a lot, and you will walk a lot no matter what you do in Paris, but it's really important to plan your days around one area.
Exactly.
Because,
and that's,
yeah, you don't want to be all over the place. Like, discover the one area, and then the next day go to a different area. But very often what happens is when people didn't plan this out quite right, they don't really know what else there is nearby. And the apps, there are some really good travel apps, but they're not good yet about telling you, oh, you're a quarter mile away from this really nice thing. And so if you don't take a tour, which is why I write self-guided audio tours, because then I explore the area and I tell people, okay, this is, wonderful, and walk 2 minutes, and there's another wonderful thing, and then 2 more minutes, and there's another wonderful thing. So I just show them all the wonderful things around them, which a lot of people they wouldn't know where to go next. And so they go, oh, I've heard of the Opera House. Okay, I'm at the Trocadero. I'll go to the Opera House. And then tonight I'll come back to the Eiffel Tower. And I'm like, oh, slow down.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of what I was trying to kind of explore in an intentional, planned way, I'll say.
Yeah.
Is I knew I had been to Musée d'Orsay before. I'd been to Les Invalides, but I hadn't really, to your point, thought about, well, what are some things that aren't these big grand museums, but what's within a 10 to 15 minute walk that I might want to see that might be gorgeous or might be a lovely place to explore. So that was
right around there. You don't have to go 10, 15 minutes. You walk 1 minute, and it's just that people walk right past it and they don't know it's there. So they just, well, I can't tell you the number of people who walk past the magnificent clock, the Ile de la Cité. There's this beautiful clock, but it's high up, and you're in Paris, and there's right there. It's really noisy and it's really busy, and people walk by and they don't see it.
Yeah, yes. Is that the one near Sainte-Chapelle?
Yes, right by the Sainte-Chapelle. It's La Tour de l'Horloge, and it's. Sometimes I sit there at the corner and I notice what people are doing. And I'm not watching the clock, I'm watching the people. And I see how many of them just walk right past it and they didn't see it. I'm like, it's so easily done. And of course that's a giant thing, but sometimes it's a small thing that if nobody told you it was there, you just never know.
Completely. And that's actually, I wanted to mention that as something about Montmartre in particular. I went to Montmartre for most of a day, and I'd been there before, but I walked around. I tried to kind of get away from Sacré-Cœur because it is very touristy, and not that there's anything wrong with that. Sacré-Cœur is gorgeous, but I wanted to kind of explore some of the streets nearby, and I did. I found some beautiful places. And however, I don't know what it was about that neighborhood in particular, but I left feeling like I didn't learn anything about it. So to kind of go back to what you were saying about the audio tours, frankly, if I'd known about, I don't think it was available.
They weren't out yet.
Yeah. But I probably would have just bought it on the spot because I really enjoyed walking around that neighborhood, but it was something that I just felt like I didn't leave feeling like I really got it. Does that make sense?
Right. And even when I write these audio tours, I have to make a lot of choices. And so I do I tell you a lot, but there's also a lot I can't talk about because I'd be stopping you every 5 meters, and then it's not a walking tour, it's a standing tour, and nobody wants that. So
yeah, I mean, so I thought I really enjoyed this visit to Montmartre. It was a lot better than my first visit, which was just kind of Sacré-Cœur and then kind of getting out of there because it was too crowded for me. But so I did really love the neighborhood, and I'd really recommend it. But I think having either your audio tour or at least some knowledge of what beautiful things you're looking at would be really helpful, because I did leave feeling a little bit like it wasn't. I didn't get the hang of it, if that makes sense. Like in the Marais, I feel like I kind of got, I got the hang of it. I got the vibe. But for me, that would be my recommendation in that area, would be to come in with the knowledge, or to do something like your audio tour.
Yeah. Or a book or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm very happy. Don't get me wrong. If people buy my audio tours, and plenty of people are, but at least go with something. Mm-hmm. Don't go with like, I'll just follow the crowd around the Sacré-Cœur, which is honestly, it's like so touristy. It's a sea of tourists.
It is. And that was another day I tried to get there semi early. I think I wound up there about 10 a.m. Oh, it was packed already.
Yeah.
I thought, if I really wanted to kind of see this a little bit less crowded, I should have come even earlier. But I mean, it really, this, it doesn't take but a few minutes to walk and be.
Right. And it depends also on the weather and all that. So, if it's a rainy day, it's not going to be crowded. But if it's a beautiful, gorgeous day like you had in June, well, it's going to be, it's the kind of place where if you stop, somebody will hit you in the back of the head with their ice cream cone, because they didn't notice that you stopped. It's that busy. I mean, honestly, it's like a sea of people.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can mention one more area that I spent some time in that I really enjoyed. It is Saint-Germain-des-Prés. So I mentioned that I've stayed there before, and I would recommend this as an area to stay in if you can, because as you know, it is stunning, gorgeous. I think personally it's the most central area. Yeah. If you're a visitor.
It's mostly flat. Unlike Montmartre. There's this sweet lady the other day who was on the Facebook group who said, we booked an apartment, or maybe it was a hotel, I can't remember. Montmartre, we're going with our baby. I'm like,
oh gosh, the stroller.
Montmartre, cobblestone. What gave you the idea to go stay at Montmartre? It's the worst possible place in Paris to stay. It's all stairs and cobblestones and hills.
It's a great workout.
Oh, it's beautiful, and it's good. You need to visit it, but not with a stroller. Anyway, So yes, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, excellent area. It's very central. It's very beautiful. It's very expensive. I think right now it's probably the most expensive place to buy an apartment. But of course, you wouldn't be buying an apartment, so you don't care. But it's very expensive, yeah.
But when you're staying there, I mean, I think if you can do a hotel in that area and make it work, I think it's quite walkable. Like you said, there's a lot going on. It's not too far from probably a lot of the places that you may want to go, a lot of those museums, and it's not far from the right bank either. So it's pretty close to those bridges. So I stayed there for a few nights. And again, I think it is similar to the Marais, not in the vibe, not in that, but in the fact that right around Saint-Germain-des-Prés, you can kind of just walk down some streets and see beautiful Parisian streets without kind of having a exact turn-by-turn direction. Although I will say I had missed this tiny little square that's so beautiful. I know you know it. Place de Fürstenberg.
Yes. Yes, it's gorgeous. Isn't it?
I walked right by it. I had done all the streets around it, but I walked right by it. Yeah. So if you're wandering in that area, Place de Fürstenberg, it's just tiny. Yeah. There was this gorgeous flower shop with flowers overflowing the street. And if you're into just exploring the neighborhood, don't miss that one. There are plenty of other streets.
Yeah. So I'm working on a tour of the left bank, and one of my problems is there's some streets there where I have so many things to say that, again, it's going to turn into a standing tour. Go 5 steps and then I have something else to tell you because something else amazing happened, and then 5 more steps, and oh geez. But again, these are very small places that people walk right by and they don't know what they're looking at. Mm-hmm. Blink it, you miss it.
Yep, exactly. Well, I don't think a slow walking standing tour would be that bad in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, but I do really enjoy that area. And I went back to the Jardin de Luxembourg, which I know is obviously, again, pretty well known. Yeah. But I just enjoy it. And I will say that's the one place where I did enjoy a nice long read with my book. I sat down by the Fontaine Médicis, kind of on that probably northern type corner by the Senat, by the building.
Right, by the Senate, yes. And it's more shaded around there.
Exactly. Well, you read my mind because it was very sunny and gorgeous. Yeah. I landed in this shaded, slightly breezy area, and I did stay there for a few hours and read my book and looked at the fountain, and that was gorgeous. So, of course, if one is planning a trip and going to that area, the Jardin de Luxembourg, I don't think it's to be missed. I
agree. It's gorgeous and very pleasant. If you can slow down a little bit and enjoy it, it's perfect.
Yes. I'd like to recommend one more thing in Saint-Germain-des-Prés. It's a specific restaurant. It's called Tois Bakery, like 13, Tois. It is owned by, I think it's owned by a couple people, but one of the women is from South Carolina, which is not too far from me. Oh. So it's a very interesting blend of, it definitely feels a little bit French, but it has some Southern American qualities to it. Most notably, they have biscuits. So I first of all, the interior is gorgeous. The food is fantastic. And I love that their terrace is non-smoking. So,
yes.
It was so nice. So I went a couple times because it was just nice to know that I wasn't going to have to consider that in terms of where I sat. And their food is quite good. It's quite literally, you're looking at the Jardin de Luxembourg when you sit on their terrace. So
so I'm trying to, I don't think I've ever been there. It must be on a side or something.
Let's see, I'm looking up. It's on Rue de Medici. Yeah. It's right by, I mean, if you know, obviously you know where the Fontaine Medici is. Yes. So it's almost right on the other side of that fence.
To the left or the right?
Street. To the right.
Okay. Well, I'll have to go find it next time.
Oh, please do. I would really recommend it. I think I went twice. I went for breakfast and I went for I got kind of hungry. And so I popped in there. They have nice snacks too, but they do full meals as well. And they had some live music. It's a really lovely place.
Excellent. So is there anything that you would do differently next time you go to Paris?
I enjoyed my time. I did not see any museums that I had on my list. So I would probably balance that out a bit more because I do enjoy that Paris has top-notch museums, of course. One in particular was the Picasso Museum, which was closed the last time I was there. It had reopened, so I've never been. I didn't get to it, and I kind of wish that I did. I don't know what I would have done, I wouldn't have done in its place, but next time, right. That is for sure on my list.
Yeah, it's a nice museum. It's last time I went, I was with Elise, and as you know, she loves museums, just loves museums.
Yes.
And I kept making silly remarks about how crazy Picasso was. So I would just go, what is this? And tried to get her to tell me what it was. And then when she was done, I'd go, uh-huh. So he was crazy, right? We agree? She thinks I'm a pest.
You balance each other out. That's good. But I'm taking my mom and my sister in next September. Well, I'm not taking. We're all going together, right? But
yeah,
I know the Picasso Museum is one that I want. I haven't been, so I think it'd be fun to do something that.
Yeah, when you go, just sit in front of a picture and ask yourself, what the heck is this?
I will think of you when I do that.
Yes. And then when you come to a conclusion, ask yourself, was this man right in his head?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you told me before the show that before we started recording that your mom is a fan of the podcast. So hello, Mom.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Sue. Thank you for listening.
That's great.
Yes. So I think that's one, kind of balancing it out. I did have a lot of fun walking, but I think next time maybe I'll walk a lot and kind of mix in some places I haven't been to, like those museums and things like that. Yeah.
So you mentioned also arrive in Montmartre earlier. Yes, that's especially on a sunny day.
Oh my gosh.
That's a really important point. And Butokai, yeah, that's a bit far, isn't it?
So, I'd seen that there's a lot of street art in Butokai. And so I wanted to go, I metroed, of course, over to that area. I had a really fun lunch at Chez Gladine. I'm sure you've heard of it. There's a few different Chez Gladine across. So that was kind of fun. But I went on a Thursday in the middle of the day. Mm-hmm. Everybody's working.
Sure.
So I was obviously, as they would be where I live. So there's not like the big, business area. So there's not as many people walking around. And I had a little bit of difficulty getting a sense of where I should go. I hadn't done my research because it was kind of like a little last minute thing.
But see, this is one of those places that people love to recommend. But it is lovely, but you have to go at the right time. You have to go on a Wednesday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon when the people are there. If you just go whenever, well, it's going to be empty, mostly empty, and the weather has to be right. There's so many caveats, you have to time it just right. And if you know Paris, you go, oh, today would be lovely for Butokai. But if you just follow a list and you go whenever, no, not a good idea.
Yeah, and that would be I realized when I got there, I thought, I should have come on a weekend.
Yeah, weekend. Or Wednesday afternoon, because that's when French kids are off of school.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, and so there's more families with their, people with kids, and that makes any park more fun.
And that would be my recommendation for if you go to those areas that are a bit more local, would be to do your research more than I did. To me, it was just one stop, so it wasn't a big deal. I just kind of went there, I went back, it was fine. But if I had wanted to spend more time there, I'd really been looking forward to it, I think I would have been a bit disappointed because I would have felt like I didn't quite know what to do and felt like, I did choose the wrong time. So if you want to do something a little bit off the beaten path, I'd say do your research so you know when to go.
Go when there's people.
Yes. Yeah. It was
also, it has some nice features. The garden has some nice features. I can't remember them all. I've been there, but I've been to so many Paris parks, I don't remember what all the features are there. But yeah, it's good if you kind of go to Wikipedia, look at the features that they offer and go on a weekend or on a Wednesday afternoon. Yeah.
But the good thing again about being solo, it wasn't the highlight, but it was fine. Yeah, I just turned around and went back and did something else.
Yeah,
it was great.
I think that's a very good point. People are afraid of traveling solo, but not everybody is afraid, obviously, but people wonder, will I like it as much? Would it be better if my friend came or if my husband or whatever, kids, whatever? And yes, it's wonderful to go with somebody else, but it introduces some limitations. Your freedom of movement is not the same, and you will definitely see more, I think. You can pack more in if you're by yourself, because you can just change your mind. If it doesn't live up to your expectations, you can just go, okay, bye. Move on.
Yep.
Whereas if you're with other people, there's always the one person in the group who's been doing all the planning, and everybody looks at them like, why did you bring us here? This is not nice. Or this is, this is not romantic enough, or whatever it is. And so when you're by yourself, you don't have all those problems.
Exactly. And I would say, I know this doesn't apply to every visitor, but something I noticed, because as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, my husband did join me for the second week. I speak a little bit of French. I would say I'm low intermediate and my accent's not good. But when I was by myself, people did not switch to English. It was very few and far between. And I think I even got some questions sometimes about the wording they used was, where do you originate from? Not where are you visiting from, but kind of assuming that I was there, which was kind of nice because I guess carry a conversation. But
so they figured maybe you were an American who lived in Paris.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think being by myself, when I had those conversations, I did get to practice my French a little bit more and push myself. I had a 40-minute conversation in French from the airport in the taxi after not really sleeping. So that was a challenge. But I think,
welcome to Paris. Woo!
Yeah, I did it. But it really pushed me to just stick with French. And if I got stuck, kind of say, I'm sorry, just a moment, kind of gather my thoughts. And people were very patient with me. And I noticed when I was with my husband on a previous trip and then after my solo week, they were quicker to kind of catch on, okay, she's the only one talking. He probably speaks English. I'll be kind and switch to English, which was great, but not as good for me in terms of practicing.
Right. So, and you mentioned a few apps that you enjoyed. Let's talk about those before we get, before we wrap this up.
Of course. So I have two to recommend. The first is City Mapper, which I believe originated in Paris, but they do have it for other major cities in Europe and in the US. And what I particularly liked about it, it's a transportation app. So it tells you if you plug in 2 points, it tells you how far to walk, how long it would take by bike, by Uber, by metro. And my favorite is the metro and bus option. I stuck to walking in metro when I was there. But what I love about their metro functionality in particular is that it will tell you what car to get in and when you exit the car, exactly which direction to turn off of the platform and what door or what exit to take.
Exit number, yes.
Exactly, which is critical if anybody uses metros in big cities. It's that's the same problem. But I wanted to not have my phone out near the metro or on the metro just for safety in terms of pickpocketing. Uh-huh. So I would look at it before I got there and I'd say, okay, I know I need to get off at this stop and I need to look for that exit. And so I wasn't kind of wandering around the metro or worse, getting out and being 2 blocks away, totally turned around, because you can do that if you get off the wrong way. So I think in terms of just making me feel more comfortable in navigating, I really recommend City Mapper. Sorry. It's free to download. Yeah,
it's my favorite too for Paris. I've also used Google Maps, which is fine, but I prefer City Mapper. I think those apps, it's like, you probably already have an app on your phone that can either Google Maps or Apple Maps will do the job. But to me, City Mapper has the extra little plus that I enjoy. But that's a personal thing. My husband would prefer to just do Google Maps.
And I preferred Google Maps for walking. I think their turn-by-turn directions for me were a bit better. But Metro, I completely agree. I preferred City Mapper. So I had both.
Yeah. And it's important that you pay attention to what cart you need to go wait, where you need to go wait for your metro. Of course, the difficulty is always where's the front and the back.
Yeah, that's true.
But very often there's another metro on the other side that will come first and you go, oh, this one's going this way. So mine is going the other way. But paying attention to that and pay attention to the exit number that they recommend, because if you don't, there's metro stations where there are so many exit numbers. They are sometimes a quarter mile apart from one another.
Exactly.
Some of them are huge, Some of them there's just one exit, one entrance, one exit. Those are easy. Like Cité, on the Ile de la Cité, just the one exit. One entrance, one exit. Simple. Louvre-Rivoli is the same. There's just one entrance and exit, but there's so many others that are just all over the place.
République, I think I did, and Art de Métier. Oh gosh, I'm so glad I had that app. It really helped me, and I felt more confident.
Yeah, les halles.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ginormous.
Yes. I have one more app to suggest, and I think that I found this one from one of your other listeners who was on the podcast, but it's called TripCoin. And it's a very simple app that just helps you track your expenses. Oh. It's also free. And I liked it just because I like to kind of be aware of what I was spending each day. You plug it in yourself, and it helped me understand how much a solo week in Paris truly cost me when I was on the ground. I had a good sense coming in, but it was very helpful.
Huh. I don't have that one. I might have to try it.
I liked it. I'd recommend it.
So that does it listed by this is how much you spent on food and on transportation and whatever?
Exactly. Okay. And so you can segment that out. You can even segment out by city. So if you cared about that, like if you're going to multiple destinations, you could kind of see, well, how much did I spend in Paris versus Lyon versus Annecy, things like that. And I'm sure it's helpful if you're splitting cost with people and you need to kind of reconcile off the books, so to speak. You could use it for that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I mean, I vaguely remember somebody mentioning it, but I've never tried it. Maybe I'll install it. Because even at home, it'd be good to know.
I thought so.
How much you spend on, whatever.
Right.
I mean, I like you said, I have a pretty good idea. But
yeah. But it's nice. I thought it was good to keep me aware of what I was doing.
Yeah, that's good.
And my last suggestion from a technology perspective, it's not an app, but it is how I used my cell phone when in Paris. I used the Orange holiday SIM card. So I'm sure you know Orange, the cell carrier. It's massive.
It's one of the biggest cell carriers in France, yeah.
They have, for purchase, I know you can do it in person, but they also have it for sale on Amazon, directly from Orange. I think that's important to note. And it's called a holiday SIM card. And it is, I bought it from Amazon before the trip. And when I landed at Charles de Gaulle, I took out my Verizon SIM card and I put in the Orange SIM card. There's a couple instructions that are laid out very clearly in English and French that you need to follow. But I know that cell plans in France are very affordable, but in the U.S. they're not. And the international fee for Verizon is $10 a day. And I was going to be there total for 15 days. So
that's outrageous.
Right. I mean, that'd be $150. But the Orange...
I pay $20 a month.
I believe you, and I'm envious.
And I can roam anywhere not anywhere in the world, but in the U.S. and Canada and places like that. I'm not even roaming.
That's incredible. Well, that's not how it works here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, although this number may sound high to you, Annie, it was $50 for 10 gigabytes of data for 14 days. And actually the one that I purchased, for some reason, they doubled it to 20 gigs. I mean, I could have been watching videos my whole trip. I don't think I would have used it up.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's more than you need. They have a cheaper option that I think is like 8 gigs for a little bit less. But I did know I'd be using my phone quite a bit, so I didn't want to feel constrained. So to me, the $50, it saved me $100. It worked so well. It was far and above the international service that I got with Verizon last time because it's a month.
Sorry, but then if you get a new number, right?
You do get, yes, there are a few things to keep in mind. You do get a temporary French number. So you have to have a backup plan. I use WhatsApp to communicate with my family at home. So my mom and my husband and my kids, they had my information on WhatsApp so I could communicate totally as usual.
Right.
Messaging, video, all that stuff.
Right.
So you do have to be aware of that. The other key is you need to have a phone that will let you insert another SIM card. So that generally means that you've paid in the US, that you've finished paying off your monthly payment on your phone to your carrier, because a lot of times it's locked into that carrier. Or I had just purchased my phone from Apple, so I didn't have that.
You weren't tied to any carriers. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is critical. If you're tied to a carrier, I don't think you can go this route, and you may have to use the international plan that you're on. But if you're not, or if you have an older phone, an older smartphone.
Right. If you have another smartphone, or really, if worst comes to worst, you could buy a little, what's that Chinese brand of cell phones?
I don't know.
There's when you land in Paris, there's all these little cell things, and they sell really cheap, like $50, maybe $100 smartphones that are not locked.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah. So and they don't cost much. They're not the best cell phone you've ever had, but if it's just for 2 weeks in Paris, you could just keep that one for your vacation in Paris and just stick your Orange holiday card in there every time and done.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so I think if the stars kind of align in your cell plan and you can do the Orange, I'd recommend it because it didn't kind of blip out on me like the Verizon International did last time. So better service and more cost effective if you can make it work for you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. You've been wonderful to talk to and shared some very interesting information. I will put the rest of everything, because you really did a lot.
Yeah.
Too much, in my opinion. But I'm an old lady. Excuse me. But I'll put that in your as your guest notes. People can look at it, and at least you had everything grouped in areas that made sense. Like your groupings were all very good, and you give lots of restaurant and cafe recommendations, which people seem to love. I'm not someone who looks for those kinds of recommendations, because I guess I like to eat, so I can spot a good restaurant from a mile away.
Good for you. Some of us are not that talented.
Yeah. So, and it's not hard in Paris, honestly. I mean, come on, you're in Paris. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been very informative. And I wish you great times in Paris next time.
Thank you so much, Annie. Merci à vous et au revoir.
Au revoir. You know what makes me happy? When people appreciate my work. Here's another new review of my voice map tour of Montmartre. I had so much fun doing this audio tour. I actually did this tour in the evening, and it was awesome. Although there were a lot of places that were closed, the parks, churches, and museums, the sights were quite dramatic at night. There were also not a lot of cars and people in the streets. That made my night photos turn out super cool. I enjoyed Annie Sargent's style of narrating. She has a certain way of making you feel as if you're living through her stories. I couldn't stop raving to my boyfriend about how much fun I had. We ended up doing another one of Annie's tour the next day, and he was hooked. Please make more. Thank you. This was so much better than signing up for a group tour. This way you can start and stop when you want, take your own bathroom and lunch breaks, sit for a while and enjoy the scenery, and take as long as you want with taking photos. Super awesome. Well, thank you so much, whoever you are. Unlike the previous review, I have no idea who wrote this one, but your reviews and ratings of the tours are much, much appreciated. Thank you, Caroline. Let me get my mouth ready for this one. Schoenberger? Thank you, Caroline Schoenberger, Christina, Brian Perry, Matt Killen, Alita Pereira, oh, that one's easy, and Janice Heffley for pledging to support the show on Patreon in the last few weeks. Patrons enjoy several rewards that you'll find listed at patreon.com/join us. Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes. I share exclusive content with my patrons, including help with your French comprehension, stories about France, photos, and membership into a secret Facebook group. group. And of course, patrons can message me directly through Patreon, and these messages always get top priority. And I've done several of those in the last few weeks. If you're not sure your itinerary for France is as good as it needs to be, let me review it for you. It'll cost you $50, but you'll get an hour of my time. We'll talk on the phone. We'll go through the whole thing. And then I will send you my recommendations in writing. And of course, I will custom write these recommendations for you and your interests. Email Annie@joinusinfrance.com to set that up and write itinerary review in the subject line. My thanks also to Laura Padden, Leslie Rayner, Patricia Rand, Kim Terry, who set up a recurring donation through PayPal, which is pretty easy to do these days. So thank you all these people for sending in a one-time donation by using the green button on any page on joinusinfrance.com that says tip your guide. And Lauren says, thank you for your sincere, authentic podcasts. Many podcasters are advertising for their sponsors, and it is difficult to gauge what is worth our travel time and money. It is refreshing to hear you and your guests' true opinions of places and sites. I'm really glad this matters to you, Laura, because giving the microphone to regular travelers who share their experience matters a lot to me, too. As far as I'm concerned, they are the experts because they just experienced the place and they can report on what it was like with no agenda. And people like you who make a voluntary donation make it possible. So thank you, because let's be real, I have to be able to pay my bills. If there are no patrons or donors, advertisers would be the only way to go. And I get at least 1 or 2 requests a month from people who would like to advertise on the podcast. And so far I have rejected all of them because I'd rather keep going this way and see if I can make a living just selling my tours and being grateful for your donations, because I think it's a better model. My thanks also to Delphine Brandt for her one-time donation. Delphine is French. From Vichy and has been living in the US for 18 years. And she's bringing a big group of 15 to visit France. She's not a tour guide, but someone who has a lot of friends who rely on her because, you know, she's French. So she knows everything, right? Bonne chance, Delphine. That's a big job. Thank you also to Cellar Door Wine Tours for your one-time donation. This person said, your information is worth so much more. Thank you for these podcasts. I feel I will have the vacation of a lifetime, and all my planning has been so much easier because of you and Elise. We don't feel like we will be so blind going in for the first time visiting this beautiful city and country. Wow. Sorry about all the reviews and all that this week. Since I had banked the last 3 podcast episodes, I hadn't had a chance to thank anybody. So now I'm catching up. All right. And if you'd like to support the show without spending a penny you wouldn't have otherwise, before you go shopping on Amazon, go to the bottom of any page on joinusinfrance.com and click on the Amazon ad or the booking.com ad, because you go through these sites through Join Us in France. I get a small commission. It doesn't cost you a penny more. And that's win-win, I think. For my personal update this week, well, I came home 2 weeks ago from a wonderful 2 weeks in Paris, where I wrote and recorded and released the Saint-Germain-des-Prés tour. I also mapped out the upcoming Latin Quarter tours, which I need to write now. But I'm reading a lot of books. Before I write anything, I read a bunch of books, and I try to go into all these French authors so as to not repeat stuff you've seen. Because if it's American or English authors, chances are you've heard it. But I'm pretty sure a lot of these bloggers who write about France, they can't read a word of French. So that's my secret weapon. Anyway, you know, it's fun to do. It's a wonderful way to get to know my own country, which was the whole purpose of doing this podcast. Because like Delphine, I was away for a couple of decades. And when you come back, you just go, oh, wow. I understand all the words, but none of the meaning. what is going on? So it's always very interesting. Okay, so I better wrap this up. I'll tell you much more next week when I'm going to be recording an episode with Elise to be released next week. So I'm sure we'll chat some more about my trip to Paris and all of that. And remember, lots of people don't think to look for a podcast to help them plan their trip to France. So tell them about it. They'll find Join Us in France anywhere they get their podcasts, including Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere there are podcasts. And if they don't listen to podcasts yet, show them how it's done. It's easy by now. Or send them to joinusinfrance.com. Send questions or feedback to Annie@joinusinfrance.com. Have a great week of trip planning, and I'll talk to you next week. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2020 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.